Hey, it's Liz, and I want to talk a little bit about how a floor loom works and how that relates to the rigid-heddle loom. So let's talk about that. What I have here is a 4-shaft loom, and it's tied up on a straight draw, which means the yarns are threaded through the shafts 1, 2, 3, 4. So the yarns on shaft 1 lift when I step on treadle 1. So only the yarns that are thread through that shaft go up. Then on the second treadle, only the yarns that are thread on that yarn go up. The third and the fourth. So as they're thread, they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I weave, and this is a twill that you can weave a 3-1 twill on the rigid-heddle loom, or a 1-3 twill. So we're gonna weave with the first treadle going up. Here's the second one, so it's stepped over. So what's happening is it's going under 1 and over 3, and that's being stepped over as you go. And you can see why boat shuttles are fabulous for floor looms. And I don't have a floating selvage, and you don't have a floating selvage on your loom either, so you want to pick up this edge here. That's 3, and then here is my 4th one. So here I have my 4th treadle. So you can see these diagonal lines that get formed because I'm stepping over that under 1 and over 3. And that, by adding the 2 heddles and a pickup stick, 2 pickup sticks, I essentially can mimic this. So I have more individual control over those individual threads. And that's how I weave twill. There are lots of different conventions for writing a draft, but they all share 4 similar parts. There's the threading, the tie-up, the treadling, and the drawdown. The threading area tells you how to thread the heddles. In this draft, the loom is threaded on a straight draw, just as we saw demonstrated in the previous section. The draft is telling us to thread the heddles in successive order, starting with shaft 1 and progressing through shaft 4, and then starting over again, 1 through 4. The tie-up tells you which shaft is tied to which treadle. This is a direct tie-up where one shaft is tied to one treadle. It's possible to tie up more than one shaft to a treadle. The treadling area below the tie-up tells you in which order to press the treadles as you weave. So in this case, we're treadling 1, 2, 3, 4. The drawdown shows what the fabric will look like as it's woven. This part is left off many drafts, but once you learn how to read a draft, you can fill it in for yourself. This draft is written for a rising shaft. When you step on a treadle, the threads on that shaft are lifted up. The yarns float under all those lifted threads. In that row of weaving, you will see the weft yarn going under the raised threads and over all of the other ends. This raised warp is indicated by the filled-in square in the drawdown, meaning in this area you're going to see the warp yarn. To create a drawdown, look at each treadling line by line. Follow the area marked in the treadling up to the tie-up to see which shaft or shafts are tied up on that treadle, and then color in the square in the drawdown area. It's really fun to draw your drafts as a way of getting familiar with how they work. I use them as pickup charts, manually picking up the up ends in front of the heddle on a pickup stick and laying in my wefts row by row. It's slow, but it's a really fun way to weave a border or create extra snazzy fabric. I'm sidestepping a long conversation about styles of floor looms and drafting conventions. Depending on your floor loom, your shafts may go up, or they may sink down, or there may be a combination of both. And the drafts representing these other types of looms may look slightly different. Sometimes you may see numbers and symbols in different sections. but no matter if it's a number or a symbol, it's telling you the same information. So let's take a look at weaving that 1-3 twill on a rigid heddle loom. I've got my loom set up here. I've thread my 2 heddles. I've placed my pickup stick and my heddle rod for twill. All right, let's take a look at our setup here. I have this set up, which may be helpful, or there may be a lot going on here, so that each position is a different color. So heddle 1, which is shaft 1, are these yellow threads. Shaft 2, which is this pickup stick, is the purple. Shaft 3, which is the holes on heddle 2 in the up position, is this blue. And shaft 4 are these magenta threads. Now it's a little outside of the scope of this video to show you how to thread for 2 heddles and setup. I cover all the basics in my Twice as Nice video workshop from Interweave. So if you're new to threading heddles, you're brand new and getting started, you may want to check that out. So let's weave our twill, okay? So heddle 1 is up. Now one thing that we have going on here too that I mentioned in the video is we're going to have to be mindful of those selvages. You can choose to catch them or not. That's a personal preference in terms of your selvages. So there's 1. Here's 2. Now, sometimes with twill, you're dealing with close set sheds, and I have a fine wool on here. So you may find with those, if you get into wool when you're just starting out, you may want cotton because it's a little less sticky. All right, so we're packing that one in. Now I'm going to do 3, which is my heddle, shaft 3, heddle 2 up, and then 4, which is my heddle rod. And I have to use a heddle rod because I can't place that pickup stick there or they will interfere with each other and you can't get a clean shed for this position. Okay, so here is 4. All right, let's take a close look at what's going on here. And I'm going handheld, and it's gardening season in New Mexico, so I don't have a manicure. You'll forgive me, right? So let's look at this. Here is my shaft 1, which is the yellow. Here's my shaft 2, which is the purple. My shaft 3, which is the blue, and my shaft 4, which is that magenta. And there's something else going on here. The reason, one, you've got a lot of color going on, right? So the weft is one color, and you don't see that strong diagonal because there's something else that happens with 2 heddles. You get this clumping. So this is my plain weave section, and you'll notice there's kind of 3 yarns clumped together here and then 1 spaced apart. That's called reed marks or loom staped cloth, and that's going to wash out when it comes off the loom. So that may cause that shaft 3 or your 2 up to look like it's popping out of the rest of the threads. But once it's off the loom and relaxed, it will be just fine. Okay, I can hear the wheels spinning. Anything with a straight draw, I can pretty much weave with this setup. Now where it gets tricky, and you're like, well, what other 4 shaft weaves can I do? There's double weave, and which are my 2 favorites, sort of twill, getting finer sets, and double weave. Now where it gets tricky, you know, there is nothing you can't do really on this loom. Some of the weaves you have to pick up entirely in front of the loom. Some of them you can work with 2 heddles. Some you can work with 2 heddles and some configuration of pickup sticks. There's 3 heddle weaves. There's 1 heddles and more configurations of pickup sticks. So there's a wide variety. And the answer of, well, how do I know which one I can do is a journey that you find along the way. Now, what gets tricky with this setup is our holes, is the fact that the threads that are threaded through the holes are restricted and aren't necessarily free moving, and we don't have as many options with them. So let's take a look at that. If I lift up my heddle 1, so this is shaft 1, and I want to get 1 and 2 right next to each other, I'm going to move this other heddle a little closer because that makes it easier, and this is where my colored threads are going to pay off. So here's my shaft 4, or my shaft 2, my pickup stick. And what I get is I get 3 sheds. So I get this sort of weird one on top, this mini one on top, and this lower one on the bottom. So it isn't that I can't get the 2 next to each other, it's just that it gets tricky. And so from there, you really have to look at the draft, understand how your threading works, and start fiddling and start experimenting. So I hope that offered you a little bit of insight as to the relationship between the floor loom, weaving drafts, and the rigid heddle loom. It is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much there for you to explore if you're interested. Me, I know my lane. I like to use 2 heddles to get finer sets, some of those easily achievable patterns, and to weave double weave, which allows me to weave a fabric that's twice as wide as my loom. If you never learn to weave a weaving draft or you never step up to 2 heddles, there is still so much for you to explore. And that's the great news about this weaving journey. We get to decide what kind of weavers we are. So until next time, heddles up!